Hello everyone. I want to talk a little bit about the first exam and some things you can do to prepare to do well on it. The first exam will occur during the regularly scheduled class time. So see the schedule for the specific date on that. And I want to talk about the course objectives, the logistics for the exam, a little bit of the focus for each module, and then what you should do to prepare to do well on this exam. Okay, I'm not going to read through all of these course objectives. These are in the syllabus, and this PowerPoint is on Canvas, so you should be able to read through those on your own if you want, but this is just linking that information to what this exam is doing so that you're aware of that. For the exam itself, it will become available at 9 o'clock, the regular start time for the class, and will remain available until 11:59. So basically that 3 hours that we normally have for lab, you will be doing the exam during that time. We will not have a lab during that week. During that time, I will be in the Zoom. I'll be there if there are any questions, mainly questions about logistics or expectations. So that's where I'll be. I'm not going to just kind of throw you out there and have you figure it out all by yourself. I'm not going to help you solve the questions. You have to do that yourself. But it's possible if I need to clarify anything, I will be there if you need that. So you don't need to be on the Zoom, but if you want to, if you have a question, you can find me there. So that will be available. You're not going to spend 3 hours on the exam. It is only a 90-minute exam. So you need to find a time within that 3-hour block that works the best for you. So I'm giving you a kind of a larger block of time so that you can find something that's convenient. And it's when we would normally be having the regular lab time. So hopefully that is a time that does work for you. In terms of what you'll be doing here, you will be looking at the exam and you'll need to upload something showing how you have solved the questions for the exam. When you do this, it needs to be either a PDF or a JPEG. This is something you've all done already, so I know you all know how to do this. And this is how the exam will work. You can do this in a few ways. If you would like to print out the exam and write on each page, that is certainly an okay way to do this. It would probably make it easier on me when I grade it. If you want to write on a separate page, that's fine too. So if you want to put number 1, answer number 1, and then move on down, that's fine. If you're doing that, make sure you're really clear about what you're writing. So what is it answering? And whether you write on the printed out version or a separate piece of paper, very, very important that you are showing your work. So I need to see how you got to the right answer, not just the right answer. You will not get full credit for any question if you just write down a number without showing how you got there. So you need to show those steps to get the full credit. Make sure that you're writing legibly as you're doing this, that however you are scanning or taking a picture, that it is getting that information correctly. So, don't take a picture from, 3 yards away and there's a little tiny piece of paper there. I need to be able to see it clearly in order to grade it. And if there are parts omitted, those parts would get a 0. So make sure you're doing everything, uploading everything, if you want credit for everything. The time limit here of 90 minutes, you will need to get it done during that amount of time. That does include actually a 15-minute buffer for any technical issues related to printing, taking pictures, uploading. So this would normally be for an in-class exam a 75-minute test. I'm giving you a pretty big buffer there for anything related to that. So don't spend the 90 minutes and then go start the upload process. You need to give yourself a buffer there to make sure you get it done in time. A couple of other things for the logistics here. When you take the exam, so of course you'll need a paper and a pencil or pen. You also need to have some other materials. Now, if this were an in-person exam, I would be giving you a periodic table. I am not going to do that here. You need to provide that yourself. That is in the front cover of your textbook. There will be questions that you will need to look on the periodic table to find the answers to those questions. The question won't say that. The question doesn't have the periodic table there. Part of this is that you know when you have to do that. You know when to go to the reference for that information. There are some constants. Avogadro's number, for example. The back cover of your textbook has that information. So the question is not going to give you Avogadro's number. You have to know when to go look that up, or any other constants or information that come up here. Anything that you think is important, make sure you know how to find that. You can use your textbook for this exam, but you need to know how to use your textbook for the exam. So you need to know where to find the information. One thing about an open book exam that you need to be aware of is that an open book exam doesn't mean you're looking up the answers to each question. It doesn't. You're not going to have time for that. You need to know the material in order to get it done in the 90 minutes. This basically the 75 minutes plus a little bit for technology. You need to know the material in order to get it done. You're not going to have time to learn it during the exam. So the book is a reference, and you need to be able to find what you need in the book. You need to know how to do that as you're taking the exam. You need to have a calculator, of course. So the 75 minutes is not based on you doing long algebra on the side, or long division, I should say, on the side. You need to have a calculator available to do the math for this. So you can use your book. Make sure it's ready for you in terms of knowing where to find what you need. Put some bookmarks where you think it's important, so you can easily find that. In fact, I would say for an open book test, you probably even want to study more than a closed book test, because you want to, first of all, master the material, and then secondly, know where to find it in the book when you need it. So just a few things about that. So that's what you will need to have access to, and you need to make sure you're providing all of that for yourself. There are a few things you should not have access to. Basically, other people. So this still needs to be your work. So I want to say a little bit about that. So other people and internet sources, and I have actually an honor code that you'll be signing as part of the exam. So this will be the very first page of the exam. And you're basically saying that you did this. You did the exam. It wasn't somebody else. That you don't have someone you're talking to, whether it's a classmate or someone else. You're not paying a tutor to do it for you. You're not sending money to a website to do it for you. This is something that you're doing. So when I say an internet source, I don't mean you're looking up the periodic table on the internet. I mean there are websites that you can pay money for them to answer your questions. That is not okay for this exam. And there are some things I have in place to basically keep the honest people honest here. So if you do this, there shouldn't be a problem. There are some additional things I could have done on this exam in terms of enforcing this idea that you do need to do it all by yourself. There is software that basically takes over your computer and your camera, and it watches while you take the exam. So this is actually something I was considering in the spring for this fall course. And what I decided, I basically decided against doing that because in June, the murders of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor were very problematic, and there was a lot of protests around those. And our college president decided that we need to be an anti-racist college. And so how I interpreted that was that it's very difficult for me to both try to encourage you to do well and at the same time focus so much on the sort of surveillance of what you're doing and assuming that you're not being honest. So I want to assume that you are going to honor this and you're going to sign it saying that you are, and there's things in place where if you do, then you might get caught and you'll get a 0. But I'm not going to go too far in that direction in terms of trying to take over your computers and watching what you're doing, just because it kind of builds on some of the systemic problems in colleges related to making sure they're open and accessible to everyone. So it's hard for me to be both your cheerleader and your, enforcer at the same time. I'd rather be your cheerleader. So I hope you all do well. I want to say a few more things about this. However, if we did have that bigger mechanism in place, it would, more than likely find anything else that's problematic. But I think how I want you to think about this is not how to get around that, but why are you even here? You're probably here because this is a prerequisite for something else you need to know, or something else you want to do. If you don't know chemistry, you're not going to be able to do those other things. So if you somehow get around this and you go on and you go to a nursing school, for example, if you didn't get there honestly, you're going to get yourself into more trouble because you're going to be there and you're not going to be prepared for it. And when you're in nursing school, they have smaller courses. They're more intense. There's like 12 people per class. You're with the instructor all day long. They're going to know if you don't know what you're doing. They're even going to implement some of this stuff that takes over your computer. And that's completely fine. That's important that we do have nurses that know what they're doing, especially right now. In a pandemic, we want to trust our medical providers to be honest people and to know what they're about. So if somehow you are able to get around this, a year from now, 6 months from now, you're going to run into trouble. My goal is to help you learn chemistry. I have some things in place to keep honest people honest. I have had to give 0s to people because they haven't done this, and I don't want to do that again. So please abide by this honor code, and you should be fine. Okay, so a little bit about what to expect for this material in terms of the different modules. So I have module 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 shown here, and about what % you'll get questions from each of those modules on this first exam. You'll notice that module 6 is the biggest one, right? So we spent 2 weeks on that module. It is probably the hardest material. It's kind of like you've got to the top of the mountain, and now we're going to have an exam over it. So make sure you understand that. And then the others are pretty equal other than module 3. Was kind of a shorter one, but we had some kind of more intense modules around that. So you got a little bit of a break that week, but make sure you understand the material from each of these modules. For module 2, some things we talked about here, scientific notation. We talked about significant figures, so this is a big part of module 2. You need to both be able to count significant figures in a measurement, as well as perform calculations with significant figures. One thing I will say about significant figures, the question itself will tell you whether this is important. So in terms of grading the problem, significant figures will matter if the question says they matter. Okay, so we have a lot of calculation problems. They're not all about significant figures. So the question itself will tell you if that matters. We looked at unit conversions. This is the other big part of module 2. Part of this is recognizing what units are measuring. Part of it is using the SI scale, so converting between kilo, centa, milli, all of those, any of those conversions, and doing that correctly. And then units raised to a power was something we saw here as well. Module 3, we continue with that last bit of chapter 2 with the density calculations we saw here. We looked at the scientific method. We looked at classifying things. We classified matter, properties, transformations, and energy. So you need to be able to classify all of those things. And we looked at temperature conversions. Part of Module 3, I should say Chapter 3 of the textbook, we'll come back to later related to the heat equation. That's something we'll get to at the end of the semester. So you don't need to know that for this first exam. Module 4, we talked again in more detail on properties of matter. We looked at what's inside the atom, so the subatomic particles and the various numbers and things we use to talk about how many of those we have. So be familiar with all of that. We looked at the periodic table, so how to find information from that, different special groups with special names, what are metals and nonmetals, those kind of things. And then we looked at compounds. So compounds could be molecules, ionic compounds, or acids. Be able to make that classification, and then based on that classification, name them correctly. So you need to be able to take the formula, from the formula find the name, and you need to be able to take the name from the name, find the formula. So either way. Module 4, there's a lot here. We went through it really quickly and spent a lot of time in the lab on just the naming aspect of that. So make sure you're comfortable with all of this stuff. Module 5, we got really intense with some of the math, with the calculations we saw here around the mole concept. I have all these asterisks here. The reason I'm doing that is because I'm not telling you this is the exact question you're going to have. You need to understand the process of how to do those conversions. So atoms, moles, and grams, be able to take any one of those and find any of the other I guess, two. So it's not about memorizing this memorizing the steps. It's about how do conversion factors work and setting them up appropriately. Empirical formula and percent composition. Okay, again, you need to be able to go in both directions for those. And then molecular formula, that's again directly related to empirical formula. So be able to do calculations to find the molecular formula as well. So again, mole concept is a central idea here in Module 5. Module 6 is building on this. So if you struggled with Module 5, you need to get Module 5 down before you can really figure out Module 6. Okay, Module 6 is the big one. It's kind of the top of the mountain here. For this first exam. We spent 2 weeks here, and you really need to have all of this mastered to do well on this exam. So we started by introducing the idea of what a chemical equation is. So we talked about balancing chemical equations. We talked about classifying chemical equations. We also looked specifically at the double replacement reaction in terms of predicting the result of that reaction. Now, we didn't get into as much detail as your textbook did in terms of using that chart to figure out, the different physical states. That's something we'll come back to in a later module. For now, you just want to be able to do that prediction to find the result of a double replacement reaction without caring about the physical state. So balance the compound and then balance the overall equation. The big thing from this module is stoichiometry. So stoichiometry is basically all of that second week. And then we actually first introduced it in the first week. I want to introduce that in the first week because it's such a big idea we need more than 1 week to talk about it. Stoichiometry is taking the mole concept from chapter 5, or I should say module 5, bringing that together with the chemical equations we first introduced at the start of module 6. And we're taking those two together. So stoichiometry is comparing moles when we have different things in a chemical reaction. There's lots of possibilities here. Convert from mole to mole, convert from mass to mass of something else. There's not, there's not like a comprehensive list of things to memorize here. You need to understand the process of the conversion. If you understand the process of the conversion, then stoichiometry is just applying that. So you need to be able to apply that idea with showing how you're canceling out units to get to what you want. That's the basis of stoichiometry and the basis of the mole concept. But we build on that, right? We build on that with these other ideas, the limiting reagent concept. So there you're given amounts of 2 reactants and need to find the product. So you need to have stoichiometry down before you can move on to limiting reagent. Same thing with percent yield. You need to have stoichiometry to find the actual yield that you'll be using as part of the finding the percent yield. So again, stoichiometry, very central. These other ideas build on it. The enthalpy concept, you're relating energy to a chemical equation. You're building on that idea. So kind of the top of the mountain here. If you don't get this, please figure it out. Please come to my office hours, see a tutor, go to the discussion board, whatever you need. But this is a big deal. This is the big part of this first exam. And the mole concept continues to be important for the second exam. So if there's one thing that you need to know for this course, it's the mole concept. There's more than one thing, but that's the most important thing to pass. Okay, so how do you get ready for this exam? What I would recommend is make sure you've done all of the worksheets so far. And when I say that you've done them, what I mean is that you don't just look at the answer key or look at what someone said on the discussion board, that you feel comfortable doing it all by yourself. And if you need to have someone come along and verify that, that's fine, but you need to be able to do the work because you'll be doing the work by yourself for the exam. Have your resources available. So you'll need your periodic table, your constants, anything else in the book you think would be helpful to you while you're taking the exam. Make sure you know how to easily find that during the time you're taking the exam. Set aside 75 minutes of time and take the practice exam. So there is a practice exam on Canvas. We'll come and look at that here in a minute. But treat it like an exam. See how it feels. Where do you feel like you don't know what you're doing? Wherever that is, that's what you need to go back and spend more time on. If you feel confident in all of it, then maybe you're ready. But I would say make sure you've done a lot of work before you get to that point of actually taking it. At any point in this process, ask for help. It's not wrong to ask for help. In fact, asking for help is how I got through getting an engineering degree, getting a PhD. All of the things I've done, I needed help along the way. So you can go to the discussion board, you can go to the tutor, you can come to my office hours, whatever is most comfortable for you. But you need to ask to get what you need there. And again, that's part of learning science. I don't know anyone who has succeeded in a science course without having someone alongside them through that process. So these are the things that I would recommend that you do to get ready. The last thing I want to do, I want to go to Canvas and look at a few things there. So here we're looking at Canvas, and I'm going to scroll down to the module that we want to look at, which is the review for exam 1. So this PowerPoint will be on here. I don't think I put it on here yet, but there are a few other things to look at here. So the practice exam is right here. And I just want to say a few things about this. You can see that I'm giving you the periodic table. I don't do that for the real exam. So you need to find your own, provide your periodic table for yourself. This table might be a good thing to have, right? So if you don't have those memorized, you can maybe have that bookmarked. This table not as important for this exam because I'm not caring that you know about that stuff yet. So there's a lot of questions here. So you can kind of see this is a similar format to what you'll be seeing for a lot of it anyways. And you want to go ahead and do this kind of on your own, see how you do. And that will be some good practice. I wanted to come to the end here because there's some multiple choice questions at the end. Your exam will not have those. So you can try those if you want for just some extra challenge. They are often more difficult questions, but we won't have those on your exam. So this online exam does not have multiple choice questions. Okay, so that's one thing I wanted to look at. Another thing I wanted to look at there will be a discussion board here that you can ask any questions about. And I'll probably unlock this a little bit early as I put up this video. I'll probably unlock it when I put up the video. Another thing here are some answer keys. So I want to say a little bit about those. These are for some of the worksheets that are similar to the ones you've had. They won't be exactly the same. And one thing I want to say here is make sure that you have tried these before just looking at the answer key. So you being able to do these is you figuring it out and then checking with the answer key. So don't just print out all the answer keys and think you'll be fine. You need to be able to do it yourself. So you're not going to see the same questions. You'll see questions that are all for similar concepts, but the answer key itself is not going to be enough to get you through the exam. These are just to give people additional guidance that might need it to get ready for the exam. Okay, the exam itself is right here. So the exam will be at the very bottom of the review for the exam 1. And when the module opens, you'll be able to click on this and see when it becomes available, and that you have 90 minutes and to take it within that basically 3-hour block of time. There's one question on the exam. I'm actually going to do something here. I'm going to leave the student view, and I'm going to look at this exam so you can see what will happen when it's time for you to take it. So it's not a big surprise. Okay, so exam 1, I'll go to the preview. So this is a preview. You'll notice the time is started over here. So this is how much time is left. So you'll be able to see that as you're taking. And there's one question. The one question is you download this, you look at it, you answer all the questions, and then you'll upload it. So just be aware of that. That's how that will work. So that is, that's my review for the first exam. Please go to the discussion board with any questions or come to office hours with questions. I hope you all do well. I want to do whatever I can to help you succeed on this. Good luck, everyone.